Thank you, Dr. Shentov, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to address this conference at this early stage. And I think you pointed so rightly to the importance of civil society in the rather difficult process that are ahead for the Western Balkan countries. If you allow me, just let me say 2 words on how I see the political framework for what we have today, and then 2 words about what we see as how we can support it and from the EU side. Now, starting with the framework, the political framework, I think over the last couple of years we have seen a growing recognition that when it comes to the major challenges that the EU and the Western Balkan countries are facing, we better address them together. That is about migration, that is about international organized crime, that's about also issues relating to what you mentioned, the global geography that is indeed changing, and that is about fighting terrorism. So all of that together, I think, has built up a sense within the EU and among the Western Balkan countries of the urgency of moving forward in the European perspective that all those countries have. And that is the background to what we saw in February and what we saw also in September last year and what we saw in March last year in terms of recommitment from the EU side for the European perspective for the Western Balkan countries. So that's one important element. The other element I think that is essential to have in mind is that this is of course a choice, the European perspective of the Western Balkan countries. It's a political choice of their side to use the opportunity that is there. But in order for that to happen, we from the EU side set out quite clearly what is called for. And I think it would be interesting today to have that also reflected in the discussion. And that is substantial reforms. Substantial reforms to address the issues that you mentioned. Issues relating to state capture, issues relating to fighting corruption, issues relating to governance, issues relating to rule of law. So one element is that, the reform efforts that needs to move forward, and where lots of things have been done, that's clear, but there is a substantive elements of issues that needs to be addressed for the future. Second element is economy. There is no way that we can see this positive development towards the European perspective happen unless there is an unlocking of the economic potential of these countries, which is substantial. The level of growth today is around 4%, a bit more. I'm sure that that could go up to 2 digits if the right policy is being performed. And what we're talking about here is business climate, it is regulatory burdens, it's once again fighting corruption, it is judiciary, it's the issue of the informal economy, it's the issue of the whole issue of seeing to that investments are coming into it. And it is about regional cooperation, which is essential in that context. Investments in this area will come much easier if there is a market which is seen as 18 million or close to 20 million rather than each individual countries. So that's the second element which is essential. And the third one is to address reconciliation. The legacy of the past needs to be addressed more prominently. Otherwise, it's difficult to move forward on both these elements. And the legacy of the past is underpinning political developments which are negative for the kind of direction that you outlined. For our part, for the part of the EU, the window is open. But there is a need to take the opportunity, which means to really focus on it from the countries concerned. We will support very strongly. We already do it, but we will do it even more strongly in the years ahead. That is set out in the 6 flagship initiatives that was outlined by the Commission, and it will come in the outcome of the Sofia summit that we are going to have here tomorrow. And let me finally just underline the importance of the Sofia summit. I think that should not be underestimated. This is the first time since Thessaloniki. It is all the leaders together, and it's a confirmation from the leaders of the European perspective on the one hand, but also very clearly a confirmation of the leaders from the countries concerned of recognizing the need to move forward on the reforms, and also the recognition that that is called for assistance from the international community, but in particular then in this context from the EU. And finally, in order for this development to take place, in order for this process to move ahead, I mentioned in the beginning the importance of civil society, freedom of expression, all those elements that holds the leaders into account is going to be very, very important as the leaders' commitment to do this, and of course also to see to that the public opinion, the people of the countries, sees the benefits and take them also to the extent that they now are on the table. So it's a big challenge ahead, a big challenge, but there is also a fairly clear direction, and the support from the EU side is clearly there as well.